a panel of very young colleagues who will input into this particular topic. We started a bit late, I'm sorry for that, and I think we'll get time to take selfies and my frames. We'll get time to take pictures soon after this. Hopefully the sun will still be shining. So the way it's going to go, our facilitator will direct a conversation between the panelists and us, the participants. So our panelists will give us a round of about 5 to 7 minutes in terms of their submissions on the topic. And then we'll get enough time for us to then ask questions further and to get an understanding, a deeper or a broader understanding of the issues that they will have raised. We are expecting some more guys to come. I think they're running a bit late, but nevertheless, we'll get started. So over to you.
Thank you, Desmond. Good afternoon to you all. My name is Kumbiraika here. As Desmond said, we want to talk about what economic models should work for youth aspirations. Coming from our different areas, we just want to explore further and find out how, as young people who have interests, we have issues, we have hopes for a better Zimbabwe, what models or approaches can we best use to address our various economic challenges. So I'm welcoming these 4 gentlemen here who further deliberate, dialogue, and discuss with us around the economic models. I'll allow them to introduce themselves. I'll start from my right with Masimba, and then the other guys will follow. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Masimba Kuchera, a social and economic analyst.
Afternoon, everyone. My name is Nyasham Chichwa, an economist with the Labor and Economic Development Research Institute of Zimbabwe. Thank you.
Revolutionary greetings to you, fellow comrades. My name is Cde Basopo. I'm a student at the University of Zimbabwe studying economics, and I'm the president of Economics Students Association of Zimbabwe.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. My name is Misha Gondo. I'm with the National Associations of Youth Organizations.
Thank you, gentlemen. So we are going to do it like this. Like Desmond said, we'll give each of our panelists 5 minutes to tell us a little bit around the economic models that they think can best work to address the various economic challenges that we are facing as young people. After they do that, then we'll come back to ask for you to ask questions, and we'll continue to dialogue and discuss. So now I'll hand over the mic to Mishek, and we'll give him the 5 to 7 minutes to look at what economic models best work to address the different issues that are affecting young people. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to unpack the economic models that we can use and work for youth aspirations. Let me start by just a round of some aspirations as I've been working with young people, interacting with young people, especially one of the researches that we did before the AU-EU Youth Summit that was done in Abidjan, where we were there representing the young people, and where the young people also come with. There was a bit of research that was done across the country in terms of taking the youth aspirations. So before I go to the model, I just have to highlight some few aspirations that came from that research, and also that came from the interactions that we had with the young people. One of the aspirations that the young people are having is availability of jobs. That's just blank like that. And we have a generation where from 2000 up to now, 2018, where they don't know what is it to have a pay slip, for example. So one of the aspirations is they want to work. Whether working is their business, starting their own businesses, or getting a decent job. That's one of the things. And within that context of getting a job, they want to see economic growth to guarantee their future. So one of the second aspiration is a vibrant health system that is affordable. I'm not going to explain this. For the past years, we have a dilapidated health system in Zimbabwe. You have also seen that the politicians have taken their sons and daughters outside the country. And I'm so glad that I heard that one of Izitu Mugabe Jr. have experienced, Parerenya Atwa, the facilities. And that was not happening, but we young people need a health system that is so vibrant that they will be able to also access the health system without difficulties. Then education, definitely. And my colleague will elucidate on that one, on affordable education from Zinasu. Then time for recreation and social growth. This is very important. As young people, we need time for we need safe, what I can refer as safe spaces. But you find out, even if you look at the urban setup right now, those recreational places are being turned to residential areas. The land barons are taking everything. So this is an economy, my introduction, that has stopped to work. And that's some of the things that we need to introspect as we unpack what are the aspirations for young people. Then affordable technology. That is not dangerous to young people. Young people, we are in the technological age, and it has to be affordable and it has to be developmental. Then enabling environment that guarantees youth growth. Enabling environment is unpacked within the context of rights. Yes, in Section 20 of the National Constitution, we have the international objectives that the young people should participate in the social, economic, political of the country. But it has to move from outside the virtues of a document that is just written to practicality. That is one of the fundamental things that needs to happen. Apart from that, joining to that, I also realize that young people need freedoms, gender equality, environmental sustainability. And those young people living with disability, they are most disadvantaged because all the things, the aspirations I talked about, for themselves, they face a double-edged problem in terms of accessing this. So as we were, the past 37 years, it has been engulfed with high inflation rates, high unemployment, a dilapidated health system, as I said, exorbitant education, violations of human rights and lack of rule of law, drug abuse, among other social ills. How are those resources being utilized? We have minerals, we have gold, we have diamond, but to what extent are they utilized that they will develop the nation? And one of the principles for effective Busan Partnership for Effective Development Cooperation is focus on results, having a sustainable impact that should be driving force behind investments. We need to be open for investments. For the past years, we have been actually under targeted sanctions, and we have been actually not been performing, and we've been so radical even to the international community. But that investment also need to be guided in terms of not to say investors, they come, they take all. There should be resources that should be reserved for the locals and the young people benefiting. Then the last principle to jump from partnership for development, it will be transparency and shared responsibility. This is one of the things that has been lacking in the body polity, where corruption it ceased to become a cancer. I think we need to find another term in Zimbabwe whereby we have seen minister being awarded for being corrupt in Zimbabwe. You think that is going to be fired and you get another senior post. So this is a thing that has been affecting the country. So in my conclusion, I'm advocating for a mixed economy. madam, as an economic model. Why am I saying the mixed economy is best, especially the history that we have been in Zimbabwe and for the past 37 years? We have different types of economies. One of them is free market, where demand and supply will control whatever that is happen, where the private sector might dominate and even take some public goods and provide some public goods. We've got the command economy. We're experiencing it partly in this dispensation, whereby everything is short from the government. So my advocation is we have to amalgamate those economies, the free market economy and the command economy. Why am I talking of that? Because there are some of the goods that if you leave it to free market, like the provision of education, as I said, the electricity, the issue of health, if you leave that to private sector, the young people will not be able to access them. So it is the duty of the government to make sure that service is provided affordable, education is provided affordable, health system, electricity is afforded. Then the private sector will come in and provide now those other private goods, and that will generate employment creation. I have two case studies that have worked in terms of mixed economy. For the sake of time, I'll just rush through. The USA, for example. The US consists of both private and government-owned entries. Sometimes the government gets involved in helping the economy, for example. Two examples of government assistance in the US: welfare. They give welfare and unemployment benefits, for example. It is the duty of the government. Then they give housing aid for children, healthcare, food stamps, which are ticket and funds designated to buy food for people with low income. So we also have France. They also have a mixed economy. The economy system is mixed to both command and market economies. The government has some involvement when it comes to employee benefits and welfare. So as we are coming back to the Zimbabwe, we've been coming from these difficulties, assuming that elections will be free and fair and we are going to have a stability. We want to see an economy that both the private sector and the government, there is private-public sector partnerships. The government plays a critical role. The private sector plays a critical role. And we'll start to see employment creation. And when employment is there, young people will actually choose to say, do I want to start my own business? Because the environment is conducive. Do I want to go and work white-collar jobs? So we need to also invest in agriculture because we are an agro-based economy. And young people, they have to take agriculture as a business. Thank you.
Thank you, Mishek.
Okay, thank you very much, fellow colleagues in this room. Like I said, my name is Comrade Basopo. I'm also part and parcel of the group which you are discussing today, that is the young people. And even the constitution of this country even defines the youth. For example, we are talking about the youth. They are defined in Section 20 as those people who are between the age of 18 and 35. And if you look into this group, this is the group that was born after independence. By 1993, a person who was born in 1993, as we are speaking today, is 35. So these are people who are affected or who were born during the days of a black government. What I think is that an economy is a whole function of different variables. To me, I would like to define them as the factors of production, that is land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. And the economic model can be best defined or can be able to deliver on the basis of how these individual factors of production, how they are being used or how they are being at the disposal of the people in the country. For example, let's look at the land itself. I think land for the young people should be part and parcel of those key things that the young people must also own. Land must not just be owned in terms of demography. In Zimbabwe, if you look at the land, those who own land, including residential areas, they are the people who have managed to accumulate capital over a long period of time at the expense of those who have been affected by massive economic meltdown in the country, including, for instance, when the economy started to crumble massively during the days of ISAP. we noticed that there was high unemployment. This is the time where most people began to fail to access jobs in the country. Those who have been having the capital, they managed to accumulate more and more. And you even noticed that when we came to the land redistribution program in 2000, we noticed that those who managed to acquire this land, or the people who were even old at that moment in time, especially those who have been having war credentials. So I think we need to look into this issue of land and see how best it can be distributed equally for the young people to benefit. Because we see land agriculture, young people that are not in agriculture, we have young people with a lot of aspirations and ambitions to be able to produce also on behalf of the state, but their ambitions, they are at hold simply because they cannot own land. So our government, the president or whatever the government is going to be there after election, must be able to come up with a policy document which looks into how land is going to be redistributed to benefit also this affected demography, the young people. We look at the issue of labor. Labor is one of the key components that the young people have. What we are able to give at the moment is our labor. We are able to sell our efforts, but are we protected? That's when you look at the decent work agenda. Are the people working in the industries under the protection of the government? Are the people working in this industry able to get even their pensions after work? Are people being protected by the government that they put? That is when we also get to notice that who is owning these businesses. At the end of the day, we see there are the politicians who are owning the businesses and who are exploiting the people for their own benefit. That is why sometimes this law is being ineffective. Because, for instance, look at the students who are on attachment. That is what I call modern-day slavery. Most of them, they are being used even by the government without any form of remuneration, because they are being said they are at school. They are working, but they are producing profits on behalf of the government, but they cannot get even a single dollar, including the money for lunch and include the money for transport. So the issue of protection is defined in Section 55 of the Zimbabwean Constitution. Is very clear to see if these people, this affected demography, is being remunerated well, and if it's being protected even to get their pensions after work. Let's look at the capital. We have had in this Zimbabwe, in this country, a lot of banks being opened under the pretext of we want to empower the young people. We want to empower, like my brother here said, in Section 20, where the young people are supposed to be empowered as a duty or as a prerogative of the government to do so. But are they being protected? We saw banks being opened, like I was saying, but who were the beneficiaries in these banks? We saw various schemes, including cabs, being said is there to give loans, but the young people access no, simply because they were said they do not have collateral security, they do not have title deeds, which of course we did not have title deeds. So that what you are saying, that need to come up with economic model that can be able to give loans or access to capital to those who do not have the property, but do have the ambitions and do have the good business plans. We have viable business proposals. Or let's look at, of course, the entrepreneurship is one other thing which we have. We have the capacity and the ability to want to seed into the economy. We want to be entrepreneurs. That is one thing which we have. But our entrepreneurship should not be lost simply because we do not have the capital. You have seen most people in this country, including young people, moving out of the country, going to other countries where there's good space for young people to start their businesses. And these people, they have contributed immensely to other people's economies. So it's one thing which also needs to be protected. My brother here talked of the issue of education. I'm a member of Zimbabwe National Students Union. One of the key things that we advocate for is free education, is protected by our Constitution, Section 75. It says we have the right to state education. We have the right to go to school at the expense of the state. And I was reading one of the policy documents by one of these political parties, the Movement for Democratic Change Alliance. They are propounding that education is going to be free between the age of, that is in primary, between grade 1 and grade 7. And at secondary level, the parents will fork out their monies from their pockets. And at university, they will resuscitate the issue of grants and loans. I think for us to be able to break the vicious cycle of poverty, especially that which is currently affecting Zimbabweans, is to be able to make sure that the people in this country, obviously those who want to go to school, the young people, and they have to access education. Because if you fail to educate this current population, poverty in this country is going to be perpetual. I don't know up until when, because the people, they are not educated. And the inequality is going to remain there. Because as we state, and as we are at the moment, the levels of inequality in this country on the basis of demography, those who are older and those who are young, is pathetic. It's pathetic. Those who are young, they do not have much. They are very poor as compared to their counterparts, their fellow citizens who are above there. So we need to come up with an education model that is able to give people free education. Everyone should access education, or schemes of education which guarantee people to be able to go to school, even for loans, even for grants, so that all of us can be able to be empowered in terms of knowledge. All of us can be able to be empowered in terms of opportunities. Like one of the speakers also talked about the Zimbabwe's integration with other countries. Definitely will need that. For instance, if you go on the internet, you try and apply for scholarship from other countries. It's difficult. You see most of the scholarships, they are said Zimbabwe is not eligible. Why? Because we had been disintegrated with a lot of other international organizations, including the Commonwealth. So our people, they were relegated. We are living on our own land, a pariah state. We are not being able to afford those other opportunities other countries or other students or other young people from other countries have been receiving. So I think as a nation, definitely we need to be part and parcel of this. We need to create employment in this country. Young people, they are not employed. If not mistaken, more than 90% of the people in this country are unemployed, regardless of their age. So it's one of the critical components for us to be able to boost an economy, even to talk about increasing aggregate demand, even to be able to talk about increasing our ability, our purchasing power as citizens. These people, they must be empowered through jobs. We need jobs. And also, like I said, in terms of entrepreneurship, we also need to have young people being able to be owners of business, and young people being able to also to contribute in businesses through the issue of employment. So this is one of the key things that I believe young people must be said. My model, I'm saying, is said there's a command, it's a mixed economy, like I'm saying, but there's a command economy in a command in the part that I'm saying the land must be owned by the government. The government must be the extreme guarantor of the land that we have. And that land must be redistributed. We can talk of title deeds, but imagine if you have land being owned by foreign companies or by the private sector. And you, the only thing that you can do to be able to go get a loan is to give title deeds to that company. If you fail to pay back that money, the land is going to be taken by the private sector. And it's not surprising, by the end of the day, we have a greater part of the land we have as a country being owned by the private sector. And to me, that is not very sustainable. The government must own the land, but of course, the land must be given to those who are able to make the best out of it. So I think with this, it can act as a good foundation for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Treasure. I realize some of you might have questions. Please kindly take a note of your questions. We'll give you time to ask questions, and then the panelists can respond. Just to sum up what Mishek and Treasure have just said, we are realizing that unemployment, from what they have just said, unemployment is the biggest challenge that the young people are facing, not only in Zimbabwe, but in the sub-Saharan region. But Africa is known as the young continent because the majority of the people in Africa are young people below the age of 25. So from what Mishek also pointed out, he's suggesting the mixed economy, and Treasure is also suggesting the mixed economy with elements of a command economy to address the challenges that the young people in Zimbabwe are facing. From Treasure, we'll come back to Masimba.
Okay. Let me try to be a bit historical. Hopefully, I will not be hysterical. The economic model that the young people want is a sustainable model, a model that allows young entrepreneurs to thrive, but also a model that allows the country to function. Okay? So basically, it's a model that I would say is a sustainable model. Now, where are we and how did we get here? We are in a situation where we are probably in the mixed economy that the guys are talking about. However, we are unfortunately in a situation where the way the mixed economy has been applied leaves a lot to be desired. So those of us like me who didn't go to war are told that there was socialism and Marxism, which our brothers and fathers, mothers and sisters were fighting for. So you get to 1980 and you have that situation where we are talking about socialism. We even had Mabenda and Zanana Marxist brothers. For those of us who used to move on via the Willowgate scandal, via ASAP, we now have a seriously capitalist economy with elements of command but selectively applied. So the elements of command are applied in such a way that we do have the railways, we do have the grain marketing board, and we do have all those things. But they are not functioning in the way that they are supposed to function. If you look at the failure rate of our parastatals, it's alarming. And these parastatals, some of them are supposed to be businesses in actual fact. But shockingly, they can't even turn over a profit. In most cases, for several years. So let's get back to post-election. What model do you want? I think first of all, the model is dictated by the human resources that are going to be applied to be implementing that model. So we want an economic model at least run by people who know what they are doing. Because if you count out the people from the application of the models, we're going to have a serious challenge. Nothing against lawyers, but lawyers are not economists. And when we have had economists, even from the Herbert Moreira, Masimba Makoni, Chris Shosokunze era, the economy was functioning at a certain level. When we have had lawyers, yeah, the story is different. They may understand a bit of economics, but it's important for us not to put square pegs in round holes. So it's critical for us for the model to function, whatever model that we are going to prescribe to function, or whatever model we are going to advocate for. So it needs to be administered by people who know what they are doing, and people who are fit for purpose. And I think this is why parastatals fail. You take a social scientist like me, you make me chairman of Air Zimbabwe. I have zero idea of aviation. I have zero ideas of how planes operate. I may know jet A1 fuel, but outside that, my jumbo jet, my type sendeg. But outside that, then you make me chairperson of Air Zimbabwe. What do you expect? Disaster. And that's what we've gotten in the last 30-something years. So I would end by saying that we, as the young people, want a sustainable economic model where the state takes responsibility as given to it in the constitution of this country. But we also want a model. I think for me what is key is the people who are applying the model. The models, it will be the same sort of mixed economy where the government comes and chips in and assists where required, and allows probably the market to function in a way that the bond note, which started 1:1 with the US dollar, is now 1:80 with the US dollar. See, so sometimes the market, the principles of supply and demand kick in to regulate the market. And whatever we say on radio or on TV or at a rally does not resolve economic problems. I always told my friends that economy aigadzirwe paredio. Whatever comrade, my neighbor Kuplurufu, comrade Mugabe was always saying paredio, it never fixed the economy. And never will. The economy is fixed by the way it's an applications issue. How are we applying ourselves to the matter, and how are we dealing with the issues at hand? It's important for us to also understand we also have a role to play globally. There is also serious potential for this country globally. So the model should allow that growth. But we also don't want rent seekers and people who want to come and launder their dirty money. So our model should also be legally watertight, so that we don't allow drug lords and so on to, under the guise of investment, to start taking over the country. So let me just end by saying that for me, it's the human resources that will be key. Get the human resource placement right, then we will be on a better economic trajectory. Get it wrong, then it's 5 years of 5 years of crime. But the very last thing that I would want to say is that we want a model that does not punish citizens. Do you know that in terms of taxes, Zimbabwe has the highest number of taxes? In a tax airtime, in a national aids levy, in a value-added tax, in a pay-as-you-earn. You know, the taxes are numerous and very harsh. So we also want an economic model that does not punish the citizen in terms of taxation. We want when you go to Norway, Sweden, and those countries, they are highly taxed, but they can show you where the money is going, and they are happy to pay the taxes. This is why we have a lot of tax evaders and tax dodgers in this country, because I'm not encouraging any of us not to pay tax. I'm encouraging those who are responsible for collecting taxes to utilize them efficiently. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Masimba. Masimba is saying a sustainable model that allows young people to thrive and function. A model that allows young people to also contribute to the development of that economy. A model run by people who know what they are doing. I will just pose a question, Masimba, that maybe you can answer later. What is the role of young people in this economy that we are now advocating for? Where do we place the young people? Are we supposed to be just waiting for those who are leading to direct us? Is there a role that we can play to push towards maybe policies and an economy that we would want as young people? What really is our role? Are we supposed to just fold our hands and wait for those in power to lead? Or tomboita zveku Senegal kana kuti revolution zeku Egypt is Arab Spring? And this was a deliberate Nyasha for you to come last. coming from Labor and Economic Development Research Institute of Zimbabwe, for you to speak last but not least.
Thank you very much. I think I'll also try to answer the questions that you have asked, Masimba. What I believe in terms of what economic models do we need or do we require as a nation in Zimbabwe, the current economic model, which is a mixed economy, is what is there and it works. But we need to retweak it to make it work for everyone. How do we make the command side where public goods which cannot be given by the private sector but need to be given by government, how do we make it work? How do we make also the private sector work for the people in Zimbabwe? So I'm saying, in general, what we need is a pro-poor, pro-people, and inclusive economy. It has to be pro-poor, it has to be pro-people, it has to be an inclusive economy. We are talking about an economy which looks at people first before looking at the figures. People should come first in everything that we do. Once we are able to do that, once we are able to put people at the forefront, once we are able to say people are the economy and how do we drive and how do we make sure that people benefit from that economy, then we can start talking about all these different economic models and how to make it work. How do we get the young people involved? What is it that the young people should be looking at? I think there are three words that I would want us to look at: issues of choice, participation, and inclusion. This is how we can get the young people to participate in the development of this country. How we can make sure that the young people benefit from the development and also participate in that development. What you find now, the situation we have now, is that young people do not even have the opportunity to participate in the development of this country. You have to have gone to war, you must be old for you to be able to participate, right? You don't have choices. Currently, our structure does not give us choices. Everyone is being told, don't look for a job, employ yourself. Get into the informal economy. Some of us don't want to be employing people. It's hard work. I want to be employed. 4 o'clock, I want to go home. Huh? So I should have that choice. Someone who wants to employ other people, it's fine. Let them employ, let them start their own businesses. But those who want to be employed, work from 8 to 4, go home, rest, wait for another day, I should be able to do that. Right? So choices, like what I said, will be the second thing. Participation, choice, and issues of inclusion. You can participate, but if you're not included, you're nowhere. We can say, young people, get up, participate in politics, vote, and so forth. But how many young people are included in decision making? If I'm not included in decision making, this is, I think it's a time where young people should say nothing about us without us. You get to all these different political parties, like what he said, it's young people is up to what, 35. See who's heading these young peoples in these different political parties. 70. If he's the youngest, is around 50. But we are saying he's the head of the youth department of this organization. So we need to see young people being more included into that. Then if you look at now, how do we drive this economy? How do we make the economy work? And how do we make it work for young people? And how do we get young people working in the economy? You discover that issues of skills development is key. If you look at the 2014 labor force survey, yes, 98, 92% highly literate country, a lot of people can read and write, but let's look at the skills base. 83% are unskilled. So we have the ability to read and write, but we cannot produce because we don't have the skills. So how do we make sure that young people are able to gain the necessary skills that they want? How do you make sure that we turn this vocational education or these vocational colleges, which have been turned into green bomber training centers, these youth brigades, how do we train them to make sure that they are there to create the necessary skills? So that even if you want to leave Zimbabwe, if you want to go anywhere, you are going there skilled. People want you to be there because you have the necessary skills. How do we make sure that our economy is able to provide that? We, like what our moderator has said, is Zimbabwe, Africa, the population is highly youthful. So we should be talking about a youth dividend. But the majority of the youth are not employed, are not skilled, they're not doing anything. That's why it's easier for political parties to then buy us bronco, buy us beer, and make sure that and send us to beat each other up. Because we have nothing else that we are doing. We have so much energy, so much zeal, but we don't have any way to express it. So how do we make sure that we have an economy that allows you to express your skills, that allows you to express your energies and your zeals? That's making sure that we have young people participate. This drives us to the issue of now decent work. How do we make sure that we don't just create jobs, but we create decent jobs? This is why you get someone who can say, we have surpassed our target of 2 million. We have 4 million jobs in the informal economy. Because we are just talking about jobs. But we need to start speaking about decent work, where I get a good salary, right? Where I get a good pension, where I have rights at work, where I am identified as a human. Like what the ILO has said, a person is not a commodity. We are humans. Where I get that treatment at work, that I'm a human and I have my rights. And when I come to retire, like what they say in Shona, look at what is happening now. I was driving from Blueyo around 4 a.m. and I saw old people queuing by post office waiting for their pensions. So now they have to work for their pensions again and spend sleepless nights at a bank queue. At the same time, we need to see how do we identify sectors that are good for development, that are good and are key for employment. Currently, if you ask anyone, which sector do you see as the sector that is growing Zimbabwe? No one can identify. Why? Because the majority of our statistics are not there. Zimbabwe does not collect statistics. The last labor survey was what? 2014. We are in 2018. What has changed from there? We don't know. Zimbabwe also needs to now collect statistics and collect data and make informed decisions using the data and statistics. This is something that we need. Because as long as we are doing thumb sucking, yes, we have 4 million jobs created, but how many big jobs have been destroyed at the same time? But also something which is very key, issue of disruptive technology. Young people have the zeal. Young people can use technology to do anything that they want. How do we make sure that we have that opportunity for young people to use technology? How do we make sure that we are not getting apps from other countries, but the young people here are empowered to create those apps? How do we make sure that they are funded to create those apps? How do we make sure that we redefine what is a job? I think this is what is critical and key also in Zimbabwe. All of us, I think we all know Trevor Noah. Yes, he's making money, he's now in the States. But how many Zimbabweans have that opportunity to be standing in front of people, making people crack jokes and make a living out of it? Or when we classify a job, we are talking about you going to work for Zimra, working for Coca-Cola, and so forth. How do we make sport a job? How do we make creative arts a job and something that people can make a living out of? I think this is the economy we need to look at. It's not about changing whether we want to go to free market, but it's about making what is there more inclusive, more pro-people, and more pro-poor, and making sure that the energies that are there, young people can use them to benefit the economy and also to benefit themselves. Thank you.
Thank you for that contribution. On my way here, I was cracking my head around what models these gentlemen were going to come up with. But interestingly, Nyasha is saying, let's work with what we already have. Vanomanya, vanotamba bora. Let's develop from there. Let's grow our economy from there. I liked the term thumb sucking. Young people, we are waiting for some old Madara up there to improve the economy for us tichimwa shugunwinai. Okay, so in these models, he's saying, how can we as young people improve on the demographic dividend? We have a choice, we can participate, and we need to be included. How best can we as young people push to be included? How can we be relevant and participate? What choices do we make, and what impact do those choices have on who will lead us, on who will guide us? We have access to various forms of technology, various apps that are being handed down to us. But what are we creating as young people in Zimbabwe? How are we exploring our minds to develop technologies that can best improve our economy? I think that's food for thought. Maybe as you ask your questions, we'll get also to interrogate how best can we use the technologies that we have and those that we can develop to develop our economy. Another point that I took away from Masimba's argument was that and we are highly taxed. We are working to pay tax rather than for our labor, our tax to save us as a people. There was mention to the need to develop our hospitals to improve our health sector. This morning I heard a headline that the vice president is saying that our hospitals will be expanded. And my thinking was, how do we expand hospitals that are dilapidated? Where are we expanding from? What are we expanding from? So those are some of the things that are coming to us as young people that we need to continuously interrogate as we map the way forward to economic development and advancement for us as a young people. I'll give time to the floor. If you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand. I saw the energies that we had when we were taking selfies outside. I hope it's the same energy that we have. The ballot buddies Facebook. Am I right? So let's ask these gentlemen questions that we may have. Feel free to use the language that you are comfortable with. Masimba says including Shangan.
I'm Ronnie. Mine is not really a question as such. It's directed to Nyasha though. I would love to agree with you when you talked about sport. I think in this area, entertainment is the largest employer at the moment. So if we continue to fix our focus on saying government should do A, B, C, and D, then we might be lost because we have to move with time. If we look at football, for instance, how it is grown and become a huge business and how people are making money out of it, it's quite interesting. So even us as Zimbabweans, we're talking about Africa as the youngest continent because it has many young people. So what I think should be done is on how we're supposed to use the land that we have. Because if people hear about land, they think land is there for farming only. How about if we're going to build, imagine if we're going to host Formula One in Zimbabwe, how much money would we obtain from that? So we need to divert and think abroad and not be limited, then view other things that are actually acting as employers right now, not just to fix ourselves and saying the government is supposed to do A, B, C, and D for us. Even for those people we have land, if they were to partner with people, we have the resources already in place and build up something that can actually generate more money, that would make more sense. So in terms of the economy, I would also want to agree with you when you said that we're supposed to work with what we have already in place. I think it can actually work for Africa. But then there are certain measures that needs to be taken. There are a lot of things that we also need to consider in terms of developing policies that can actually control how the business will be operating. Because if you look, for instance, when you're referring to land as well, who's supposed to own that land and what size is supposed a person supposed to have? So those are certain aspects that we really need to consider. Because I think we are very fortunate in Africa that we still have a lot of resources. It's a good thing for us. And we are living in this period where climate change is an issue. So we really need to look at our priorities. What is it that we're supposed to do, and how best are we going to turn our situation? Because whatever the economy that we're going to come up with, the model that we have, it has to talk about sustainability. Because right now, the fortunate part that we have is that we do have those resources. They are not yet depleted. So we have to take advantage of that and come up with green businesses that would work for Africa. Thank you.
Afternoon. My name is Ganzani. Pertaining to the economic models, the speakers did allude that let's work with what is there. And Nyasha did bring up the point on sports. But then I want to link sports to the issue of infrastructure development. I see in Africa, besides maybe South Africa and the northern countries, Southern Africa, Zimbabwe, Malawi, we don't have that infrastructure development budget. As in, that is the infrastructure that caters for the sports, even entertainment, because we cannot talk about sports without the proper infrastructure. And then in terms of research and development, if we do have arms of government that focus on research and development, I think that also targets the youth, because whatever is for the future, we're planning for those behind us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Tawanda. We've got a question for Masimba first. When you was talking about human resource, isn't us as the youth one of the largest in terms of human resource that our nation has? I was looking at it on the basis that when we look at institutions like Harvard and that are out there, most of the stuff that the government needs to do, or most of the research or most of the development, they actually go there to actually get what instructions or get development. Like you can find a professor who goes to NASA because he's at an institution of higher learning. So I think within that model, how do we incorporate our human resources that's already available, which is us, the youth, into those systems? Like we've got a number of college like graduates that have done architecture that can actually go and help us in terms of council, even as an association, develop plans. But this is how our CBD should look like. And being an active, having sort of an active involvement, rather than to wait for someone that has no idea, probably that's seated within council, of how buildings, infrastructures, policies are supposed to be erected. Then there's the issue of skill set that Nyasha alluded to. My question is, how do we incorporate that into our current system? We've got a number of graduates. Like me, I went to college, right? I did IT. And the first laptop I opened was a laptop I opened after going to school. Right? And I didn't have distinctions, but those that got distinctions had no skills in terms of how to open the laptop, but they're being pushed in the market as those that are legible for employment. So that area of skill set, I think we also need to revisit how our education looks at what it is training us for. Because when I look at India and when I look at IT, and when I look at IT in Zimbabwe, it's so different scales of level that I can't get employed there with my CV because it's non-existent as in terms of a professional in IT.
Okay, I might keep on passing the mic, but I also have something to say. All right, I think before we talk talk of what type of model we need, we might want to just look basically at realism. Like, is what we're planning real? Because to me, it does not make sense to have a minister who stays probably in Brook. His house is monthly, like its monthly upkeep is like 50,000, and I live in the ghetto. The most making people are people who sell brongo at the corners. So to me, it doesn't make sense. One, and also, can we have an economy where the license to farm marijuana is 60,000? Where is that 60,000? I want them to take it to Kadoma right now, because there's a location called Remoka. People are not living fairly right there, because I'm talking of a community where the municipality of the community is not working, and we have people who actually offer to clean toilets. I'm talking of kids who enter toilets with worms walking, with worms down there. But you're telling me you need 60,000 to just farm marijuana. I need a minister of finance, probably someone who knows. If you go by Copacabana, the person you see selling shoes or repairing shoes, he has to be arrested because they're selling brongo. But hold on, don't arrest them yet. That's the only way they're making money. So before we talk of what model we need, I think we actually need to be real first. Let's structure a model, not only a model that would work for everyone. No. A model that is real. Because a lot of Zimbabwean models actually end on pen and paper, but in practice, there's nothing that happens.
Okay, thank you. My name is Nomo. The nuances I get from the majority of the presentation is that we need a mixed economy, which is already in existence. I have to agree with my brother who's sitting next to my sister there when he says, first and foremost, we need to look at the people who are going to be implementing these things. We need to look at the integrity of the people who we are putting to implement some of these policies. Now, again, back to what he has been saying, we need to look at the practicality of the kind of model that we are calling for, right? As young people, we are doing a lot of these things. We don't have, we are not in a scenario whereby our innovations are actually benefiting us. You mentioned that we are the most taxed young people in the whole of sub-Saharan Africa, yet we are not actually seeing the fruits of these taxes, right? It goes back to the people. Once we have an environment which allows for corruption to take place, no matter the kind of graduate you are going to put there, they are ultimately going to be corrupt because the environment allows for corruption to exist. Yes, I have to agree again with my brother when he says, no offense to lawyers, but we need some sort of epistemocratic revolution. We need people who know doing the things that they know how to do. We can't have a lawyer for an RBZ governor. We can't have somebody who has no knowledge whatsoever of local government as our mayor. We cannot divorce the economy from the politics. Let us first talk about the politics, correct the policies, the politics. The model is already there. Once we correct the politics, the model will start producing results. This is my contribution.
All right, thank you so much. So what I want to do is to actually ask a question that's based on accountability. Because we keep talking about an economy that we want moving on from now. But we have an economy that we're operating in. And even though it's not functioning for the average Zimbabwean, even though it's crippling the average person, it's functioning for a certain portion of the economy. We're talking about inequality. We're talking about the lack of accountability of things that are already happening. We have millionaires in Zimbabwe who are benefiting from the suffering of maybe the average Zimbabwean, of the average graduate who's being forced to work for $200 when you clearly know you need over that amount to be able to survive. But then they collect on the millions. So my question is very simple. How do we then move on from building this mixed economy that's going to be based on growth instead of the current economy based on survival? If we do not bring into those people who are actually accountable for where we are we going to put those people who already have a system that's working for them? Because you find we have land barons in Zimbabwe. who tell you, I can get you a stand for this much. You have people who, for instance, I have a friend, we managed to open a company. We opened a company based on agribusiness, which then brings us back to you need to have land, you need to have collateral. So you open the company, then you start sourcing for loans. They tell you we want collateral. You tell them, we don't own anything. We have a dream, we have a business plan that's magical, to be honest. And then you hit a brick wall, you're told we need collateral in terms of maybe a pay slip. You're earning $200. No bank is going to give you that loan. You're not going to launch your dreams. So you keep searching. That's what we're being told as young people of Zimbabwe. Work harder, do this, business, so. And then you continue hitting brick walls because there are people who are already benefiting from the way the system is. So where does accountability come in? Accountability of the current economy come in post-election into this mixed economy that we want. Where does it come in to say maybe we have people who are able? I personally believe Zimbabweans are very able because you take Zimbabweans into another country, they seem to be able to make money. They seem to be able to produce. But in this country, we seem to not be getting anything. So what are we then going to do to the system that's already there? How do I uproot my cash barons? How do we uproot these land barons, these business owners, these millionaires? How do we remove them so that we can move from being a survival-based economy to actually growing, to leading to growth? Thank you.
Thank you for those questions. We now come back to our panelists so that they can answer some of your questions. Anzi, Africa's jobless pattern of growth. Masimba, you can answer and then we can have.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so there was a very first question to say, what is the role of young people? And I think that's what Tawa, you were also alluding to in terms of the human resources. So first of all, we need to acknowledge that in this country, we do have a lot of young people, a lot of capable young people. But I think it's doubly difficult to be able to thrive as a young person in this country. You need to do more work. We come from that cultural system yekuti kana tapadare vana vadiki vanonovhiswa mbudzi. Yet unfortunately, when it comes to running an economy, vana vadiki ndo vanofanira kunge vari forefront because they're at the cutting edge of technology. Ukatora mwana 1 year, 6 months or 2 years, they can operate a touch screen phone. Ukaromba phone button atokwanisi kuioperate. So this is how even in terms of human development things are going. So the question is, how do we deal with land barons and these fake millionaires? By doing things right. So in 2009, you know, in 2009, Patakaita inclusive government, look, it had a lot of shortcomings. But one of the greatest things that you saw is that the chancers, the people who were making money by selling money, disappeared. Those people were not even chased away or arrested. People just started doing things right. If today the economy is run properly, there will be no place for the person on the street anotengesa marans, because marans anenga chwanikwa ku bank. So there will not be a market anymore, and so the economy is benefiting a few because we are doing things in the wrong way. So when you talk about some of this legislation, it's probably jobs for the boys. Huh? So we want to accommodate as many people as possible. So Mbanje, we can give you a license for 50,000. Now, this is the money that I was saying. You'll never have clean money wanting to come and someone putting in 50,000 to farm Mbanje. Most of that money, if you look at its origins, yeah, you'll tell me a story. And then the question was, how else can we play a part? You know what? One of the things that we have not been good at doing is to say no to people who abuse us, especially the politicians. We have devised strategies to adapt to whatever the politician. So if the politician says, tomorrow toll gates are going to be $5, and you protest, toita ngezvidhakwa zvino protesta for the first week, they don't go to the bars and beer sales go down, and then they find a way of adjusting their budgets, and they continue drinking as usual, even when beer prices go up. Now, we should abandon that way of doing things. It's very dangerous. The example of toll gates, Obed Mpov wanted even to put my toll gates in the city center. So uchenda kukwadzana waitoitawo kana 1 or 2. So the implication of that is kuti vanhu vanogara kukwadzana vanoshandisa makombi. So kombi can no longer be 50 cents kana taisa toll gate pakarapa, because then we need to factor in that cost. So transport becomes 70 cents, becomes $1. So I think it's key for us to also be able to say no to what we don't want, and say that sometimes forcefully, but not in a violent way. They are, I'm sure when politicians, because when the numbers are not on their side, they tend to shift. I think you've seen my good friend Donald Trump shifting. I didn't say this. I wanted to say wooden trends. I said wood. So he's seeing that the numbers are not on his side. So they tend to shift. The last comment that I would say is that it's critical to realize that this is the prime time of our lives, and no one must take it away from us. No one must take it away from us. It's funny that a politician anotipa manifesto yekutiudza zvaari kuda kutiitira without even consulting us. Ask anyone who ask any of the manifesto writers kuti who did you ask kuti ndo zvatiri kuda here, there will be no one. Kana aripo, I'm happy to have coffee with them and find out what was the consultation process. You go to a rally today, as I speak, people are addressing people. Jack by Mabas, we'll do this for you. So I think we should also now be able to say this is what we want. The nation, Muchiti, we are going to do these things in 5 years. There are things that we will not be able to do. Even if we say we are going to do road construction, it will not happen in 5 years. But we seem captured by the election cycle. We do our things revolving around it, the election cycle, which is not a proper way of doing things. The government, whoever takes over, should be able to say kuti ndo patakasira and proceed from there. But they want to claim even unrealistic things, and that's why you have unrealistic promises, and that's why you have wishy-washy manifestos, because they are looking at 5 years to say what will they have done in the next 5 years. They want to do as much as possible, which is humanly impossible.
Thank you, Masimba. Just to address some of the questions, I think the issue of government, people saying government should do this, government should do this. I think, yes, sometimes we oversay it, but I think it's also critical for government to create the necessary and a conducive environment that will allow people to be able to express themselves. It is the role of government to make sure that there are policies in place which allow people to practice what they have to practice. For example, you are looking at the indigenization policy, which says 5149. That is what government is put in place, and that is hindered in terms of hindered investment in Zimbabwe. So government has to make sure that there are policies in place and there is a conducive environment that allows people to explore and exploit the resources that are there in the nation. I think like what Masimba has said, we need to separate politics and the economy. Just coming to your issue about the politics and the economy, they need to be separated. As long as our economy is following our politics, we'll always be working on it's not even 5-year Masimba, it's 3-year. Because the first year, people are just getting into power. They work for the next 3 years, then the final year, they are campaigning for the next elections. So basically, our economy is running on a 3-year program. I think it's high time we separated politics and the economy and make sure that what is happening in the economy is not affected by the politics day in and day out. We need a situation where if a new government is to come into play, what it's doing, it's improving on the implementation and the growth of the economy. And as we are looking at the growth of the economy, we need to move away from looking at numbers. Right now, a lot of people, if you go to the economic side of this economy, the economy is what is growing. Whether we grow by 5%, you grow by 20%, you grow by 2 or 0.2%, you are growing. But it is not about those numbers which is key for us. What is key is human development. Are we growing the people in our economy? Are we allowing young people with the skills, with the dreams, to exploit what they have and to exploit their energies? Are we allowing, is the economy looking at the people? Like what I said, people should come first. Before implementing any policy, people should be able to sit down and say, what will be the impact of this policy on the basic individual? If that has a detrimental effect, let's not do it. But if it is going to boost that person in terms of growing that person and making that person better, let's talk about it. We need to look at also issues of PPPs, where public-private partnerships. A case in point, let's look at ZINAR. It is the regulator, it is the revenue collector, it is the maintainer. Then who is it accountable to? Why not allow private players to come into road construction? Now we are resolving issues of what? Infrastructure development. Infrastructure development should not be the role of government, but the government should be the regulator and allow private players to come in and regulate them. Right now, if you have potholes in the road, who do you report to? ZINARA. But it is the same ZINARA which is collecting money. It is the same ZINARA which is supposed to be maintaining those roads. And it is the same ZINARA which should be regulating road construction. So the police is policing itself. So you go there to report, nothing happens because we've centralized everything. Issues of research and development, we need that. Someone was saying, how do we? There was a time when there was a problem of water at the University of Zimbabwe. But we have professors and engineers who are responsible for that. But they can't solve the water problem at the university. Go to the department. But there's a water shortage there. So what are we saying? How are we developing this? Issues of green economy and looking at climate change. We did a paper recently and we were looking at there are places in Brazil and also in Mexico where they are making yearly around $5 million from just making sure that no construction, no destruction is happening, and they are calling these closed spaces where people just go there and they experience nature as nature. How many places do we have like that in Zimbabwe? A lot. We have balancing rocks here. How much money are we making off them? We have hot springs, a lot of hot springs. You go to South Africa, they've built lodges, they've built beautiful hotels around those springs. You go to hot springs by Chimanimani Road. You get there, you pay this guy $3, $5, he lets you in. You see the wonder which is there. But look at the place and how shabby it is. So we have a lot of spaces that we can use. We have a lot of resources that we can use that we don't. Zimbabwe doesn't need people to come in with a lot of money. Zimbabwe needs Zimbabweans to be open and to see what they have and use it appropriately. Young people go there and start making money, and you will be told someone is taking over. I remember during the land reform time, the Ministry of Youth allocated a farm to young people who were doing piggery and who were doing also animal husbandry there. Once that farm started making money, it was taken over overnight. And the ministry had to run there, and the Minister of Land said, no, this has been reallocated. So also in trying to keep it real, I think it's also important also to look at the issue of land and not over-romanticize it. Because we have romanticized land. Everyone wants land. Everyone wants land. But why do you want the land? Everyone has land, so you should have land. It's not about having land, but it's about how do we make sure that that land is productive? How do we make sure that that land is able to feed the nation? How do we make sure that that land, if we are to say, let's go for mining in that area, people are able to do that? How do we make sure that when we go for mining, which we know is highly capital intensive and doesn't create jobs, how do we make sure that we create the necessary linkages around mining that will create the necessary jobs that are required? Zimbabwe is making a lot of money from the platinum. But go there, you'll be a big warehouse bigger than this is manned by one person who's sitting in front of a computer. And sad enough, you go there, wherever you mine platinum, you get 10 more minerals. 3 of them, the most expensive minerals in the world. But for Zimbabwe, we export the ore. When we export it, you go there, I went there, they told us we do everything, but one thing that they don't do is separate the minerals. So when platinum leaves Zimbabwe, it's platinum ore, which is dirty. And what is making that platinum dirty is gold, is silver, is bronze. All these other minerals around are the ones that are making that platinum dirty, and we sell it off cheap. So we need an economy that works for the people, an economy that looks at the people and says, how do we develop it? Issue of skills development. Like what you said, the first time you use your computer is maybe after you have finished your course in computer studies. So are we creating the skills? This is what I said, 83% of those who were employed were not skilled. Because we don't take time to really develop the skills. We have the Ziramasanga report of 1999, which is now being used in other Southern African countries. And it was only now that we are trying to use it. We have Zimbabwe as an employment policy which was developed in 2009. Other Southern African countries started developing employment policies after Zimbabwe, but Zimbabwe hasn't implemented the 2009. Probably after elections they'll be reviewing it, but it has never been implemented. So we need, as a country, to say, where are the people and how do we make this economy work for the people? The minute we do that, then we address most of the challenges. The land baron issues and so on. It's because we are not concerned about the people. We are concerned about those individuals to make money. The people are nowhere. Like what Masimba said, how many of you were consulted when these manifestos were done? So it's not about the people. Let's make it about the people first. Yeah.
Okay, just a brief. I agree with the colleagues what they alluded to. If you look at Zimbabwe, like what I said, we are endowed with resources. And one of the principles that we need to apply is effective and efficient utilization of those domestic resources. And all other resources that will come in terms of foreign direct investment, they will be just complementary. And our budget will be supported. But if you look for the past years, the issue of corruption. We had the former president talking of 15 billion. He was not just dreaming. Whether the figure is correct or what, but what he was trying to communicate to the citizens is money from the minerals is being taken and is being abused, and that's the reality on the ground. And also the issue of pro-poor. I think that's what we also need to push as young people in terms of the policies. When the government is coming with the policies, the issue of inclusion. Yes, Reserve Bank has started to talk of financial inclusion, but to what is it practical? Is it cascading to the young people being there? Because the problem that we have in Zimbabwe, a policy is made, a bank is established, and the young people that I can refer as elitist young people are the ones, the sons of the politicians, the daughters of the politicians, will be the beneficiaries of that bank. So that's what they talk. So we need to push for an economy that really a young person that is in Japan, a young person that is in Checheche, that is in Bohera, deep in the rural area. Social contract. I think the social contract, the issue of social contract is very important, whereby we have the government as a player and the people have entrusted the government through election to lead them. And the government has to remember that we have been put here by the people. So we have the people, we have the government, we have the labor, we have the private sector. We all make decisions that affect us. But the scenario that we have been seeing, we did not have that social contract, where the government that just make decisions, they just woke up and say we now have an indigenization law. Who did you consult? No one. We are now going to, and President Mugabe just woke up and say we don't care about international community. Did you consult the public that you want to come out from the international community? So we now have rulers, not leaders. So we need to push for leaders in this country. Thank you.
Masimba, when you are responding to the previous question, I'll be happy if you also put in the gender aspect in your response. Where are the women? I'm really passionate about women. Where are the young women in all these policies? Because when we talk about policies, policy, where is it coming from? What does it address? So those are some of the gaps around the issues of knowledge, but also speaking specifically to young women. In all these things, these models that we are talking about, women have been for generations, for years, historically, been excluded from a lot of these processes, and we are still excluded. Where can we place young women? Because even we are talking about informal sector, Vakazara ku Glenview 8, Varumi, where are the young women in this?
Okay, where are the young women? Even my questions, we only had one question from a young woman. So we need to start from here to say where are the women. So there are two things that I wanted to say before then I deal with the question. Number one, I hope my sister you have copyrighted your business plan because as you share your business plan, don't be shocked to see it being implemented by others. So it's important to copyright or patent your business plan, and there are ways of doing that. Very simple ways. For instance, ensuring that you can actually do your plan and post it to yourself. So if that plan, when it comes back, it has a post office stamp. When you go to court, you can say, I send this to myself on this date. So it's important to ensure that we safeguard our knowledge or our ideas. As young people, that will be key, because those with resources will simply loot your idea and throw you away. So it's important to safeguard your ideas. There are several ways in which you can make sure that your idea is not stolen, or at least ensure that you are properly compensated if your idea is stolen. So I think that's I mean, we are in the era now where ideas are key and ideas can generate resources. The second comment that I wanted to make before I forgot was the issue of a sovereign wealth fund. You've been talking about platinum, gold, silver, and all those things. These are finite resources. We, in our model, in our plan, we need an economy that is able to also put something aside. Kuti kana platinum yazopera pasa, which will happen someday. We have something to, not only to show for it, but we have money that we can use. Kwetot mari yese yatawana toisa pampini. And I think this is key to say, how much are we putting aside? Now, Norway is up to, I think their sovereign wealth fund, they are kusika kuma $8 trillion. Most of it is from oil, crude oil. They say that they even have discoveries that they've done all the surveying and planning and they've put them aside. For the next 100 years, they don't even have to touch some of these things. But it's just 2 cents. We think about buying the latest AK-47 version or an armored vehicle for Cde Basopo, Mategas, canisters, and those Israeli made things. You know, our defense budget is very big. For a country not at war, we have one of the most impressive. I think Donald Trump would actually be very happy with us in terms of how much we spend in our defense. But I'm not sure who are we defending ourselves from. We are defending ourselves from ourselves, huh? Yeah. But so you see, but the economy, you see, doesn't function that way. Funny enough, Matenga Kabuda Mna November, some of them were antiquated. I may not manure natural arcope. That's a question for historians. So where are the women? I think that the way the economy is structured is also very exclusive. It excludes a lot of people. It is an element of violence, it is an element of fear, it is an element of... it's not a properly structured economy. And this is why you find a lot of women are in the informal economy. So you may not see them on the in the like in the companies, but you find them a lot in the informal economy. They're actually controlling the informal economy. I think Nyasha would have more statistics, but what we know is that the women are driving the informal economy, and the informal economy is the one sustaining this country. Apart from Delta and Econet, Abashoma Varukunza married to the formal economy. This economy is being sustained by the informal economy. But then how do you also then ensure that the people in the informal economy get value for what they are contributing? Actually, I think 2-3 years ago, we were thinking of even further taxing those in the informal economy. Tanto nima plans, kutika na uchi, une saluni yako uchi, ena gana $100. You're supposed to pay presumptive tax of. We are always thinking of how to get money out of the people and not how to enable people to make money. So the mentality should change. We can only think kuti tozo mtorera mari kantambo ita enable kuti anga achiita mari yachona. Kuti iye atofunga idea akuita mari andira zvikanzi hataane tax pama-juice cards 5 cents autorwa 5 cents pama-juice cards. Munhu afunga idea yake yekuita mari. You're not even enabling that person to make more money. You want to take the little that they have.
Thank you, Masimba. Treasure, would you want to respond?
Okay, thank you. I can see there are a lot of academic ideas which are arising on this platform. Particularly as a young person, I strongly believe that the problems we have in this country, someone talked about the nexus between politics and the economy. I think it's not about being excluded in some instances. It's about our incapacity to push and demand that which belongs to us. Our solution is clearly political. It's outrightly political. But our participation, young people, is it enough? How many of us are registering to participate in the politics so that we can be able to have these models implemented? My brother on my left here talked about 2 incidents of the Ramasanga Commission. Their findings, they are never implemented. And I think the employment policy, they are not implemented, but they are crafted, they are great ideas. So I think you need to participate in this politics. Those who are failing to run this country properly, they must be checked out by the voice of the young people. Because we are 70% of the population of the people. So naturally, by the virtue of our numbers, we are more. We constitute the greater part of the society, but you are failing to demand that which belongs to us. This is a political solution. There are elections in this country. A constitution was formulated in 2013, where more than 220 million was used to go to a referendum into an election. We believe in democracy. Zimbabwe is a constitutional democracy, but that constitution is not being implemented. We have more than 400 acts of parliament which have not yet been aligned to the new constitution. But young people are there. People are still being brutalized. You still have laws like POSA, IPA, they are still in existence, but they are not constitutional. But 70% of the population in the country, they are quiet. Why is it so? This is a political solution which needs a political action. Young people must take the lead, and you must have freedom in this country by any means necessary or unnecessary, so that these great ideas which are propounded by guys from LEDRIZ, the researchers, ETs, they can be employed. So this is what I think. Let's do what has to be done first, and let's make sure this country is properly in track in terms of the politics. Aluta continua.
All right, thank you. We can have another round of questions.
Thank you very much. First, ndida kudisagree nezvataura nemapanelist ese. Hanzi to use the mixed economy. But since I was born, kusvika izvezvi, mixed economy ndio yanga ichishanda, and it has failed to work. Inezvi munhu akarwara, I had my nini vangu vari kurara hospital. All tests akaitwa ikoko, the government could not do. Akaitwa ne-private sector. Saka government yacho haisi kubatsira, hapana zviri kushanda. It's not working. Saka ngatingoite mixed economy, because zvinhu zvese zviri kuitika munomu is the mixed private sector iri kuprovida. Saka kana government yacho isiri kushanda, ngaingoregedza kushanda zvamu chose. Because honestly, a big hospital like Harare hospital inoita ambulance one ambulance per hospital yakakura. But amwe maambulance ese anunza mapatients is the private. Saka private sector ngaingoramba ichingocontinue because ndo iri kukwanisa offer maservices atiri kuda munomu. Thanks.
Good afternoon. My name is Said Ali and I'm a landless farmer. But my submission today is nothing to do with our farming. Here is my thesis. To begin with, I feel like we have jumped a certain step in coming here today to discuss about the economic model. I believe the model that we should have discussed first is the societal or the social model. The reason why I say this is very simple. I have a submission that the face of colonialism has only changed from the white colonizer to the black colonizer. Why do I speak of this? I'm sure you know that the issue of land that you are talking about is central to everything at the moment. And when you really try to interrogate it, you find that the very people who hold the land at the moment are a minority in terms of their numbers, so to speak. So at the end of the day, we have a system that is controlled by people who are a few, and at the end of the day, they are supposed to decide for the majority. Now, there is a flaw that is very simple in that structure. To begin with, the first thing is, when you look at that model, What it means now is to say that there is an element of exclusion. At the end of the day, you will notice that when young people, for example, whom we actually know to be more productive at the moment, need to produce, they have no means of production. But now, if you try to look at the time at which the people who actually gave us the liberation, as we call it, who now became the colonizers at the end of the day, when they actually were productive to where we are today or where we were in 1980, they were in their prime as young people. But today, you try to go to the Ministry of Land to say, I am in need of land, and you find a over there who says, young men, I died for this country. You cannot actually get land before I get it. We are talking of someone who is alive and saying that they died for this country. So by virtue of him having died for this country, you have no right to access the land and use it. So at the end of the day, I think we also we need to interrogate first the social construct. And when you look at it, it's safe to say that probably we have got a case of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. So with that in mind, what it means is that on a social contract or on the social model itself, we need to have a reformist social model where we try to change the mindset that we currently have. Then after that, we can only think of trying to actually bring about an economic model that really works for young people in Zimbabwe going on forth. So here is my thesis going on forward. I don't know if there is another time for a discussion like this, but I think it should be dedicated to the social model that has to work for young people and the other generations that are not the young. Because at the end of the day, what we have is a situation we are only working for the moment, we are building for the moment. Like Nyasha from LEDRIZ has mentioned, the policy that is crafted can only work for 3 years. At the end of the day, we need to build something that is intergenerational. The only people that are managing to build intergenerational wealth today are the people who are in power, who only handle down, be it land or whatever, to their young people. And at the end of the day, we only perpetuate a poverty cycle for those who are actually excluded, which is the majority. So this is my submission, and I really hope that you ponder on it. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. So I think that, my name is Namatai Kukweza, and I work for an organization called LEDRIZ. So I'm so grateful that Ngoni was the first to talk about social reformation, because in essence, I feel like the issue of wealth creation and money and the philosophy of economics emanates from, philosophy in itself. Because we must ask ourselves fundamental questions like, where does money come from? Where does wealth come from? What is money? Where does money come from? So you'd realize that there is a great degree of need for us to look at the psychosocial component of wealth. Because a lot of the times what is preventing nations, especially developing nations, from eventually growing into developed nations is this issue of the psychology. How are we perceiving money? So when he was talking about we are, living in a society that is post-war, in a society that has been traumatized in the past, in the society that at some point was put through the slave trade, there are certain implications of those events in the past that have shaped who we are today in terms of how we perceive money, how we perceive wealth, and how we perceive need and want. And all of these perceptions have been essential in shaping our society today, and this is what is creating most of the lack. So from what he was saying, that there is need for us to look at society as a whole, because most of what is happening economically emanates from the society that we are. So there's a great need for us to actually, look at this society and then, look at the philosophies that are governing our society as to how we perceive the issue of money, how we are perceiving the issue of wealth before we even, start talking about the economics of it. Yeah, so I think that that was a very strong point, and it's something that as a society we really have to look into.
Okay, my name is Norest. I think we can never separate economics and the law. Hence, we, in as much as we want to benefit as youths, we should not be ignorant of the law. It was mentioned that there is need for the government to own the land. However, in terms of Section 71, if my memory serves me well, of the Constitution, it stipulates that everyone has a right to own property, including land. So how then are we to align this and a constitutionally guaranteed right to own property in terms of the Constitution? Thank you.
Okay, my name is Priscilla. My issue is that I feel like we are putting a lot of pressure on the state because we are saying, let's redistribute the land. The same redistribution which scared away investors. We can say we have resources, we can do away with investors, but I don't think that's the truth because we cannot live in isolation. It is the same redistribution program that led Zimbabwe from withdrawing from the international community, and it is because of that isolation that crippled our economy. So what are we saying with regards to land? Can we say we should redistribute the land so that everyone can own land, including the youth? Should we just give the youth the land? What are we saying? Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to allow our panelists to respond. For the sake of time, I think after they respond, we're going to take just 2 contributions and then they can give us their final submissions. I think it's getting heated, the aspect of land. Can the youth own land? Can they use it sustainably? Masimba talked about a sustainable model. If we distribute land to the young people, or if the land is owned and run by government, is that sustainable? So maybe in your responses to some of their submissions, you can also address the aspect of land that seems to be getting heated. So I'll start with Nyasha, then I'll get to Masimba.
Okay, thank you. I think, like what I said before, let's not over-romanticize land. The way we say land, 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 and land becomes everything. To a point where even when we aren't to talk about development, everyone is going to say, let's go back to the issue of land distribution. Let's not shy away from this, but there was said to say this. The way the land was redistributed was not proper. We cannot run away from that. There were good and better ways to redistribute land. And 1999, 2000, 2001 was not the first time Zimbabwe redistributed land. We had it in the 80s, which at the end of the day made Mugabe even win an award of in terms of production, where they gave land to people who were trained on how to use the land. People who had gone to courses on how to use the land. Unlike now, the way we are over-romanticizing land to a point that everyone just wants land for the sake of just having land. So let's move away from that and let's say, who is going to get land and who's going to be productive on that land? Then we can talk about land distribution and we can talk about equality in terms of land allocation. For example, I'm one guy who doesn't want land at all. I don't want it. Because when we are talking about land and we are talking about land distribution, we are talking about someone who's getting land to be productive on that land, who's going to be a farmer and who's going to employ people and who's going to make sure that there is production on that land. If you are going to give me 3 acres to build a house, that's not being productive. If you are going to give me 3 acres, make sure that I produce on that land. You get a situation in Zimbabwe where there was a time we had a problem with cooking oil. The issue was that people who used to farm cotton, where you use your cotton seeds and you get your cooking oil, were no longer producing cotton. Because if you were as efficient as possible, you were going to make a loss. Someone was buying cotton at $3 a kg. And that person was selling that cotton at $15 a kg. So you are also looking at the value chain and saying, is the value chain then benefiting the farm? So it's not about just, let's have land, but it's about giving land and making sure that that land is productive. If we do that, then we can now start talking about proper land redistribution, about having the market running the economy and moving away from government. I think you wouldn't want that. Because there are certain commodities that cannot be left to the market. For example, lighting, road construction. You leave that to the economy, to the market, a few people will be able to afford it. So there are certain things that government needs to be involved in, and there are certain things that we need the market to handle. So we need to accommodate both. But what is essential and what is key is making sure that that works. You have a situation where you go to Pararinyato, most of the doctors, they do not treat you and they refer you to a surgery. You get to that surgery, it's the same doctor who's running that surgery. So that doesn't work. We need to make sure that things work. Go to South Africa, for example. A lot of people are running away from NGOs to government. Why? Because government pays. A different situation here. People are going to government to get what? Experience, and move into the private sector and move into the NGO sector. So we need to address those things. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just two things to agree. My sister, if you allow the free market, as you are saying, to take over this economy, even my ambulance, Murkutaura, my private ambulance, there is certain regulation by government. You will not be able to afford. You will not be. Now government has actually said blood will be free. Like Angara Kare, you would be paying for blood at the rate of $200 a pint. So the free market cannot take over, especially in the developing world. You know, kumba kwenyu ukavura tepu yemvura inenge yakutochaja if you allow the free market to operate as you are describing. So yeah, I mean, vasikana ndo vanogeza kwenguva yakareba. Mvura yame muchishandisa inenge ichichaja, and inenge ichichaja at very sometimes punitive rates. So the free market cannot be allowed to take over the economy. It's very dangerous. In actual fact, it's the those who believe that the free market can do everything, but there is a huge section of our population, due to several factors, including unemployment and underemployment, who will not be able to afford. But we can take this offline and continue the discussion. I do agree that we may need to also look at our society and look at wealth and look at money. But our society is not that bad when you go to those things. Wealth was preserved in the form of animals, was preserved in various forms as our society has evolved. So we do understand the value of wealth and the need to have wealth. What has happened is that at some point we also have not been able to understand the use of money, mainly propelled by those people who flaunt a few dollars and then we think kutwaniwa vanemari. Your Captain Fiascos of this world, your Jinimbis of this world, they are the ones who actually mystify man, because sometimes you look at how that money is being used, and then sometimes you start wondering, is this a proper use of man? So it's something that we also need to think about, but also teach our young people. You know, one of the things that we don't have in our country is financial literacy. Financial literacy should start at primary school. Ndosaka toona zvavapfana zvima-India zvataidzidza nazvo kuPrince Edward. Vanenge vachiziva mari zvakaipa. Because they start learning to use and to handle money and to understand the value of money at a very young age. So one of the key things that young people should be looking at, including in our curriculum, is financial literacy. Financial literacy is key to the development of any economy. The last thing that I'll say is we need citizen participation beyond Kuno for water. What we lack in this country is active citizen participation. We don't even know what's happening even sometimes within our communities. There are a lot of things that happen where us as citizens can participate, but we are not doing that. The key to any development of a nation is active citizen. But that's when you'll have the capacity to question government. Are you aware that at the rate this government is borrowing money, all of you owe at least more than $1,000? If you look at how much how much now are we per domestic borrowing? And this will be my last comments. I think this will be my last remarks. If you take what Zimbabwe's population, look at the borrowing, you will find that we are all in debt. So even our children or young brothers and sisters, atizvarwa andozvarwa ane minus $1,500. So I think in my final remarks is I think it's key for us to be actively engaged as citizens. Citizen participation is key.
Thank you, Masimba. I'm sorry our time is run out. I know there were a few hands, so we can continue the conversation outside. I'll give Nyasha time to give remarks. He's about to leave.
Thank you. I think one of the key things that we have to come out from here with, whatever political party you are supporting or you are going to vote for, is to ask strict questions around what is it that they are doing for young people in terms of empowering young people, not through the empowerment bank, whatever, but empowering young people to fully have choices, participate, and be included in the discourse of this development of this country. Because it's not about having an empowerment bank, which is what, 12 million? 12 and a half, you divide that, you're getting like $3-4 each. It's not that. It's not that people want to borrow. It's that people want to develop themselves. People want to see this country grow. And people want to be part of something great. So at the end of the day, it's asking them to say, what is it that you are doing in terms of improving my choices, improving my participation, and improving my inclusion in the development of this country. I want to participate in the development of this country, and I also want to benefit from the development of this country. Let's move away from numbers and let's look at people. People should come first.
Thank you, Nyasha. I'm going to ask Masimba and Treasure in their conclusions. Masimba, I know you had said my last remarks. Just so that we close. People have been asking around what then is the solution. You were talking about the youth having to push for the change they want, having to be actively involved. What is it that young people can do to be included and to be involved? Do they need to revolt? Do they need to go into the streets? Do they need to join hands with the army again? Because it's November. So what then do we do as young people to be included in this space? So I'll start with Treasure, and then we conclude with you, Masimba. Just a few seconds.
Okay, thank you, my sister, for asking such an important question. What need young people must be able to do? I think firstly to start with, someone talked about the law that there is law usually which can actually prohibit young people from participating. But I'm saying an unjustified law is not law at all. What we need to do as young people momentarily, especially at this moment in time, is to have our greatest energy towards political change, because everything that is happening in this country is because of politics. Let's make sure that we participate in this political change. That how can you do that? Young people register to vote. Now let's go into the streets. Let's go to the ballot and vote. That let's vote for that which you want. And if you feel that the electoral outcome is not a resemblance of the people's demands, let the young people. I wouldn't like to say let's occupy the streets, but if you think that is the only solution for us to have our voices heard, I think it's the only way to go. Let's put as much political pressure as possible for us to have the change that we need in this country. Aluta.
I do now have a bit of some gray hairs. It's not because of age. Yeah. Let me tell you something. Young people should ensure that they continue to enhance themselves, be it educationally. Young people should enhance themselves. The greatest danger is what happened in November. People took part in a process which they didn't know who authored it, where it was coming from. So they thought they were the ones effecting the change. Now they are being affected by the change. So let us be careful in terms of thinking that political change will be a solution. Of course, it's part of the solution. But after voting, you will not tell that politician that, but my friend, I'm the one who voted for you. So it's not a guarantee that the politician will do what you want them to do. So that's why I was saying, asifani kuperera pakuvota. Let me just say that the young people have all the right to be able to claim what it is we also have in terms of my resources. But let us do that from a position of knowledge, from a position of capacity, in terms of educational capacity. If we can, let's ensure that we enhance ourselves educationally. But I just want to caution that atidi kufarira ng'anga ne inobata mai. Zvakaitika muna November. I personally did not participate, by the way. I personally did not participate because I didn't know who was now initiating the process. So I didn't own the process. I think the final word is, young people, we should own our destiny. We should own our destiny and ensure that we direct politicians where we want to go, not where they want to take us, because that's the danger. And post-election, we should rethink the way we even engage and interact with politicians, because we also give them the false excitement that we are their people. Is it politicians, when they see you thinking in that we are their people, then they relax. So we should never give a politician, whether they are the ones what supporter or not, an opportunity to breathe. You see, if we become Julius Malemas to say you say, comrades, we are prepared to die for Zuma. Not only are we prepared to die, comrades, we are also prepared to kill for Zuma. Now, Malema has formed a small political party there. Yeah? Zuma is even no longer there. So let us not have that kind of attachment with politicians, because that's what is letting us down. But we can't be dependent on politicians. We are not their dependents.
Thank you, Nyasha. Lastly, the panelists talked about an economy that is sustainable. So as young people, as we go back into our different areas of work, different sectors of education, we just need to remember that we need to create an economy that is sustainable, and we need to act towards what we want. He's talking about Zuma not being there anymore. Our former Vice President Mpoko is not there anymore. So as we talk and interrogate some of these issues, let's look at the politicians that we select, their relevance, their effects, their impact on the Zimbabwe that we want as a generation of young people. Thank you for coming to this debate today. We hope to engage with you more as we have these discussions and more open platforms that we interrogate issues as young people. God bless you. Have a good day.
@263chat.com. Follow us on Twitter @263chat and like our Facebook page 263chat. For these and other stories, visit our website www.263chat.com. Follow us on Twitter